thanks for joining us, guys. I'm super excited to bring my dear friend Brian Truskowski because he's has this incredible journey of transformation, transforming himself, and through his personal development journey, going through Landmark, going through Mankind Project here in the United States and in Canada, living in 6 different states, transforming himself first, and then now having that gift to be able to give back. And I brought him on here because I feel like his story is going to touch people, and and he's in this work, and so am I, right? So it's all about getting someone else's perspective, because that perspective, even if it touches 1 or 2 people and we make an impact, that's what we're here for. And it's one of those things. It's like you can't help someone. It's like if I was on a ledge, right? I can't lift someone up until I'm standing firm on my 2 feet, and then I can reach down and pick someone up. So welcome, Brian. Thank you for being on. I really appreciate you coming on. So just tell me a little bit about your personal development journey. Like what started that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first I want to say thank you, Daniel, for having me on the show. This is exciting. I love any opportunity to get out there and sort of share my story. And honestly, I'm going to share a part that I don't think I've really shared very much. So exclusive content here on your channel.
Cool.
is I would say my transformational journey goes all the way back in a non-conventional way, back to being a teenager, right? I, in high school, thought I knew what I wanted. I mean, what high schooler really freaking knows what they want anyway, right?
Yes,
so, but anyway, I was choosing to go to a specific university, not based on any credentials other than, well, that's where all my friends are going, so I guess I'll do it, right? And then as I was starting to literally had photo ID, had schedule, didn't get the books yet, something didn't feel right. And at the time I was in high school and I was studying photography, and I had a passion for that. And I was random night out with some friends at a coffee shop, and someone that I kind of knew, she goes, do you know that this community college here in town offers a degree in photography? I'm like, what? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, how do I do that? She's like, it's a community college. And what I didn't know was, based on what I knew about university, was you had to go through a rigorous sort of process to get, in, right? And community college, you're in, right?
Right.
If you got 2 hands, 2 feet, and a brain, not even optional, you're in, right? Sort of thing. So for me, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So anyway, much to the dismay of my parents, but they're like, I lost thousands of dollars in scholarship, because the scholarships I had at that time were for state university, not local community, but got a 2-year associate's degree in technical photography. But what that did for me was showed me that it's never too late. It's never too late to turn the horse around, right? Because like I said, I had my photo ID, I had my schedule, and for all intents and purposes, I was a student at this university. And I'm like, nope, wrong. And I'm so glad I did that, because that sort of set the stage for my journey. Little did I really know that, right? And as a result of that, I also, in that same time frame, heard a saying that the best way to see the world is to live there, right? Not necessarily like go on holiday for a few weeks, right? That's not going to get you the same experience, right? So for me, growing up in Detroit area, first moved out to Portland, Oregon, was there for a few years doing photography, loving it. I mean, there's plenty to photograph there, right? And then circumstances happened that led me up to Seattle. And then in that was working photography. And then again, there was this itch coming out that photography, I was working in a lab and it just wasn't working out. And then I got into construction, something else I really, really wanted to get involved with. And then that sort of evolved, and then my life again shifted. Then I ended up in San Francisco doing plumbing in like high-end residential, big houses, like the fanciest houses you can find in San Francisco, doing new construction, remodeling, plumbing there, right? Cool. Well, anyway, this is the short version. Found myself depressed, unhappy, had on paper, kids, on paper had the perfect life. You know, Midwest boy living in San Francisco, engaged to get married, have the perfect job, living 10-minute walk from the ocean. Game over, done, right? What's your problem, kid? Well, I was depressed because I wasn't happy, right? All these circumstances lining up should make me happy. But on the bottom of it, I was depressed, and it took me about 2 years of saying I'm tired of people to really sort of clear that, like, no, like this just isn't working, right? So long story short, spent 6-8 months in New England, and then finally returned to my home in Michigan, where I went to school to study massage therapy, and been in that sort of field for the last 10 years. And within those 10 years, I started studying energy work and inner child work and shadow work, and then found organizations like Mankind Project and started studying, becoming a member of them, and leading and helping staff their intensive 3-day new warrior training adventure, actually 13 times over the course of 4 years. So got a lot of on the ground training, helping staff with them. And this isn't like a specifically it's just a men's organization to help men empower each other, right, on their journey. And then in that, I also studied with Landmark International in Denver for about 1.5 years, and got a lot out of that. But within all that, my own ceaseless cravings for understanding philosophy, studying with Alan Watts. I call him one of my teachers. I listen to that man so much, and I've learned so much from him. Philosophy, New Age movement, spirituality, Eastern philosophies, Native American philosophy. I mean, I've just studied so much, and within all of this, and within my short 38 years of my life, I've also dated a lot, you know, to various degrees. Never been married, and I want to share this with you. So in all these sort of things, I was creating the story of what the heck is wrong with me, because why can't I get it right? Why can't I, you know, just land a job, just get married, just settle down, right? Especially my mom. I mean, God, I don't know how many times I heard that story from her, right? But
we're the grandchildren.
right, all that
Yeah.
sort of narrative, right? That social narrative that we're supposed to follow, right? And
Mm.
so in that, it's only been in the last year or two that I flipped that script of I'm broken, I'm whatever, because I can't seem to get it right, especially can't get married. You know, I date for a few years and it goes whatever. Relationships, career, why I've held, as of right now, my 38 years, I've held 21 official addresses with the United States Post Office, right? So moving on average once a year in the last 20 years, and on and on. And so for me, I had this flip and this realization of, I had a reading from a psychic or someone when I was younger, in my 20s, saying, in this one life, you will lead many. And I didn't understand that then, but I understand it now. And what I've come to realize is all of this journey that I've been on as an adult in the last 18 years has given me so much information, knowledge, experience that most people don't have, right? Because of my own personal journey. And it's been curiosity that has sort of propelled this, been the driver for it. And I flipped this. I said, why do people work with me? You're not hiring me as a coach, as a body worker, as a whatever, because I have some certificate on the wall from some university that says I'm validated, right?
Right.
You're hiring me because I got dirt on the street experience of these things, coupling that with my own intuition, my own sort of empathetic skills and abilities that I've honed over the years, right? One of my favorite jokes is, what do you call a nursing student that finishes last in their program? A
Nursing
doctor.
student.
A doctor. A doctor.
Oh, a doctor.
right? Because they don't ask you where you finished. Like if you're a doctor, you're a doctor, right? They
Yeah,
don't ask you
exactly.
how you placed, but if you have the certificate on the wall saying that you have a doctorate degree, oh, well then you must be knowledgeable, right? But that didn't mean anything, right? So with that, it's what I'm bringing to the table is 18, 20 years of just hard learning. And on top of that, actually made a breakthrough. Check this out. You're going to love this, Daniel.
Yeah.
I just started going to a new school on new age stuff, new age healing, distant healing, ancestral work, inner child work, trauma work, shadow work, all these things I'm learning right now. But in that, I have to get my own healings, right? And so I had a healing the other day that rewrote an old paradigm. Get this. So as a child, I suffered so many physical traumas, emotional traumas, not from my family of origin, but the world at large. Okay.
Right.
And being a child and having, issues, I was ridiculed. I was tormented. I was bullied. I was all these things, right? And I'm sure a lot of listeners can align with that. And
Right.
so as a result, I felt unwanted, unloved, unnecessary, all these things. Well, holy wow, man. Through the session, came to this realization of from the get-go, I was being trained from spirit, from God, from whoever, to have experiential experiences that I would be healing from, not academic, but real life experiences, physical traumas, surgeries, emotional traumas that would inform me on how to navigate this world. Right? Not from university, not from academia, but from like dirt on the street. Like, how am I going to navigate this? And my my 5-year-old, who I was working with archetypically and in the astral world, I was explaining this to him, and he goes, "You mean that? Oh my God, that is so cool." And this was his reflection. "Oh my God, that's so cool. I'm awesome." And somehow he flipped it in his own world, where he went from being like the joke of the classroom, the coolest kid in the class, because look at me, look at all these amazing hard ass experiences that I've had to go through, and I survived, and worship me basically, right? And he flipped that, not only in first grade, but 7th grade, 3rd grade, all these different times that I had traumatic experiences. And on that sort of psychic astral realm, I flipped the script, and all of a sudden I'm the coolest kid in town, because look at me, I've survived all these things, and wow, you must really be tough to survive these things, instead of, ha ha, look at you, you loser, you're broken, right? And so, holy cow, right? And so like that is literally just happened in the last day or two.
Oh, wow.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's just like, even flipping those narratives, like how much that's changed my energy. And now I'm walking around like, hell yeah, I'm badass, right? Because I've been through these experiences. And as opposed to, well, I know something academically, let me get my book out and let me tell you what I know. Or it's just like, no, it's not even knowing it in my heart, it's knowing it in my soul, right?
Right. So different.
So for me,
so different.
And so for me, especially as I really see this new, well, there's been so many waves of awakening happening this year, and we're kind of in another huge one right now.
I know, the whole world.
Is what I'm sort of being guided to and seeing is that I've been prepared for now, right? I've been prepared for now to help, like one of my current clients, has been in, he's done that sort of here kitty through all the grades and through everything. He's an engineer, he's working, he's making 6 figures and wife and kids and whatever, but he's just over it. And he's recognizing his world's crumbling before him, and he has all this passion to do real life things, right? Natural movement and foraging and living off the land and things that actually have actual tangible benefit, as opposed to sitting behind a computer as an engineer and just doing whatever, right?
Right.
So he's wanting to make the switch, and he's like, I don't know how to get from engineer world to this new world. and he's sort of struggling. And so I'm working with him, and he's starting to get it. He's starting to get it. And he's starting to see the breakdown, because the fear a lot of people have in these transitions, and this is something I talk about in a lot of these interviews, is old paradigm is I leave job A and I start job B within a week or a month on some severance pay, and I can just float that, right?
Right.
That doesn't work in the new realm, right? And so for me, as an example, when I was going from being as a student in massage therapy to becoming a full self-employed individual, it happened over the course of a few years where I was learning, learning the industry, learning the trade, building clients, building confidence in the industry. And then I safely, or not so safely, took the leap to leave the grocery store job that I had as an interim job to go into it. So likewise, with this particular client, like what I'm trying to tell him is utilize the resources you have, utilize the free time, the weekends, or whatever time you have to focus on and implement and build whatever your passions are, whatever you want to step into, and let that be a ratcheting experience over time, right? You're not going to flip the narrative is job A starts, we're going to start like right now. Let's say, today is the 21st of November. Okay, I'm just going to wrap up with this job. I'm going to start the new job in the new quarter, in the new year. It's going to be whatever. No, that doesn't really work. I mean, yes, if you're going to stay involved in industry in that sense, but if you're driving towards self-employment or doing what your passions are, you may be self-employed. And in that case, it's the both and, it's not the either or. So ratchet that in, and over time, you're going to hit a tipping point or that panic point where you're going to have to jump off the cliff.
Right.
And trust, right?
Right.
And trust. So if that's what you're going for, and that's a lot of times the people who I work with, they're wanting to make that shift or that transition. Or get this, you're going to love this. One client I was working with in Denver, this blew my mind. She was working for the city and working 80 some odd hours a week, being completely driven, drained. Her boss was always on her back. She was never happy, could never get ahead. And the boss was always just on her back. Well, she either got fired or quit, whatever happened, because we know that crux that we all get to, right? You gotta quit or we're going to fire you, right? And we've all had that experience. As just sort of a touchstone, she got a job driving for Uber.
Okay.
And after a few weeks, she goes, Brian, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? She goes, I'm choosing to drive for Uber, 20 or 30 hours a week on my own clock when I want to. And I'm reserving the rest of the time for our work that we're doing together and me kind of looking for the next step. She goes, Brian, you're not going to believe this. I'm making just as much now driving for Uber 30 hours a week on my own clock than I was for the city. She goes, that's how effing unfair this is. Right? And I see you're picking your jaw off the floor right now, right? Wow. And she was very upset, as you can imagine. Right? And I'm not saying go get a job for Lyft or Uber, but what I'm suggesting is there you can find the interim. In fact, one of my coaches said, if you are looking for new employment to build your own thing, if you are in scarcity, you're not going to find clients. You're not going to find money because you're in that scarcity mindset and you're not going to drive abundance. So 100%. Go get something. Get the job with Lyft, get the job with Uber, whatever it may be, work for a health food store, something, just to get money coming in, knowing that it's a transitional or pivotal thing. It's not the end all be all. And I'm guilty of this. And I will say that I was trying to do that one time, but I ended up making this transitional thing the end all be all, and it kind of messed me up psychologically. Long story short. So if you have these, make sure every day you wake up and say, this is transition. This is what I'm going towards, right? Have your sort of focus point, your drishti in on what is it you want to do, right? Don't get caught up in these, the temporary job being the permanent job, because that's more the same, right?
And then there's so much pressure with society though too, like to go through the programming. Like when you said kitty earlier, that's from that Alan Watts video where he talks about, if life is like music, right? It is not a destination to arrive at. It's the same thing with dancing. you don't dance to get somewhere on the dance floor. No, the point of the dance is the dance. And
Right.
so with school, it's like, come on, kitty, kitty, you're going through first grade, and then, oh, here's second grade, and then, oh, here's third grade, all the way up to high school. Oh, and then now you're in high school. Oh, and then you get into a college, and it's like, oh, the thing is coming. The thing is coming. The thing is coming. And then it's like, oh, and then you graduate, and then you join the world, and still it's like this thing is coming. And then by the time you're old and shriveled up, you want to travel and do the things that you were always passionate about, and it's too late.
Well,
And
that's the thing. That's what
yeah,
that's what midlife crisis is, Daniel. That's what I've come to
right.
realize. A midlife crisis is I've been living under someone else's watch my entire life, and then I wake up going, "What the heck just happened?" Eh? Right? And I feel like I don't think I'm going to have a midlife crisis because I've been living autonomously, but also by choice in how I'm operating, right? But anyway, let me just finish the story with the client in Denver.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Was
yeah.
was when I told her something, and by the way, get your pen and paper out, kids. Most people don't know this. When you're being hired by an agency, an industry, or whatever, you have just as much input and choice in that job as they do. Right?
Oh, yeah,
You get to
100%.
interview them. You get to interview them. If, especially with clients, if you're self-employed, it doesn't matter. You have just as much agency to ask them, to negotiate with them. It's not, that's abundance, right? It's like, well, what about, 100K a year? Well, what about 120, right? Like, what do you think your worth and your value is? Whatever that is, right? And negotiate that. Don't just, because I feel like the old world story is accept what you're given and be grateful for it, right? As opposed
Mhm.
to, well, I think I'm worth something else, so can I negotiate towards that, right? Whatever it may be, tasks, or what, it doesn't always have to be the financials. It can be, what are your assignments? What are the duties of this job, of this whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, it all
Negotiate
comes
those
down to
things.
self-worth, though. If you don't
Right.
feel like you're worth it, and so many people have that mindset too. It's like, well, why are you going to ask for more? You don't have enough. And it's like, no, I mean, well, how am I even supposed to help anybody else if I'm broke? If I'm broke mentally, if I'm broke spiritually, if I'm broke physically, I mean, how can I even be of service to the world in
Right.
any way, let alone even like my friends and family? So it's like, no, 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 that's the incorrect mindset to have. So I'm with
Right.
you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I always love to reference, I love my father and I have an amazing relationship with him now after doing a lot of inner work. But, he's of the generation where he worked for Ford for 35 years, retired, got a pension, and he's living on the Fat Hill. Fantastic. That doesn't exist anymore,
No,
right?
no,
We're lucky if we have a 401k or investments or
right,
something, right?
right.
But that's more on our own dime now more than. And actually, I heard something recently, and I'm not surprised, is that I feel like, especially now with what's happening in this world with people working from home and whatnot, is I would not be surprised in the next few years or 10 years that there's no such thing as employees anymore. Everyone's contractors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that benefits the organization, because then they don't have to pay benefits or unemployment or retirement or any of that,
Right,
right?
right.
So that's really why I'm advocating for people to be self-employed now, is start to get that preparation. A quote that I came across earlier in the year as things were just starting to getting hard was, you can't stop the wave, but you can learn how to surf. And I
Mm,
feel like people with entrepreneurial mindset are surfers, right?
right.
They know where their board is. They know they're going to get kicked off the board and they're going to crash hard, but they're going to pick up their board and they're going to keep going,
Mm,
right?
I
And
love that.
my judgment, and they kind of know that they are somewhat in control, but by and large, they're just riding it out and going where the wave's taking them,
Yeah,
being innovative, right?
right.
Well, my judgment is that the people that are trying to stop the wave are the 9 to 5ers, or people that are typically like, well, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. The first subversive sort of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
not that there's anything wrong with them, but it's just a different mindset, right?
Right.
And so I really love to support and encourage. So my mission in the world is to educate and empower. I have a saying is lead a horse to water and teach him how to fish, right? I'll lead you there. I'll give you the tools. I'll give you the resources, but you got to do the work, man, right? You have
Yeah.
to walk through that door. You have to do the work, but I'm more than happy to teach you how to do it. I even open the door for you, right?
Yeah.
But
Seriously.
you have to walk through it, right? And
Mm.
so for me, I feel like I walk my talk in the sense where what I will say specifically is I'll never have a client do something that I've never done before to a degree, right? Like
Oh yeah. 100%.
obviously all unique experiences, but by and large, the sort of metric that I'm sort of, or the tool that I'm working with is I'm not really going to tell people to do something that I haven't.
Yeah.
I want to know how it
Exactly.
operates. I want to know how it goes, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're very, and I noticed this whenever I first met you. We met at a networking event and, had a good conversation. And I could just tell right off the bat, I'm like, no, this guy's enlightened. Like this guy's done some deep work, just from the type. And it was just, I can't even remember what we talked about, but really, so I was like, I want to meet this, I want to, get in a better conversation. And we met for coffee and then we really went deep. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that that you've done that much personal work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, yeah, it's funny. It's like I've asked people, or like people say like, oh, well, how do I get the next step? Or, what do I need to do for this? And then I'll say what they need to do. And it's like, some people are like, no, like you're crazy. Like that's just not how it is or whatever. And it's like, look, like for me to do any type of building, guess what? I have to work and have had to in the past for years work my day job 40, 50 hours. And then on nights and weekends, guess what I'm doing? I'm freaking building. And I know multiple entrepreneurs, multiple business owners, coaches, all kinds of different industries and spaces that they all did the same thing. They had to work their ass off for it. And then now you're seeing them 10 years later, they got a 7-figure business, they're doing really well, and you're like, oh, well, how did that happen? It's like, well, you don't see like the 5, 6 years of grinding to get to that point. And so they're never, I mean, gosh, even like I have mentors, coaches, like when they say, you gotta work nights and weekends, and if you're working 16-hour days, that's what you gotta do. They're doing the same thing. Even my uncle, gosh, he's 83 years old, still so driven and motivated to hit his goals that he's working 7 days a week and has been for months and months and months. It's just,
Right.
but it's just what it is. So then that leads me to,
And can I just offer before you go ahead
oh
and say
yeah,
this, but I want to offer a counter to that just for people to know.
okay, yeah,
Is this is something that I'm experimenting with and I've
okay,
been doing it is quoting Trevor Hall, if I try to push, I leave myself blinded. Meaning I have experienced so many times in this year alone where I have tried to push, manipulate, control, even on micro levels, my own experience in the world. And as a result of that, I'm actually pushing away success, right? Because I'm trying to force with my ego mind something to look the way that I want it to look, when in reality, something better is on the horizon, but I'm so focused on what I'm trying to make it to be. So sometimes in that surrender, we actually get more of a gift than if we're so hard-nailed focused on what this tiny little thing is, right? Focusing on
no, I
this when it can be
appreciate that.
this, right?
No,
Right.
I
So
appreciate that because it's, yeah,
in that, and for me, I've sort of, am I crazy nuts busy? No. Am I making enough money to get by? Yeah. Am I happy? Yes. Right. And so in that, it's like I want to be busier, and I am getting busier, and busy is always, subjective. But in that,
right,
I want to say that, yes, work hard, pay your dues, do that stuff, but don't go crazy in the process, right? don't run yourself ragged, because all work and no play make Johnny a dull boy, right? We got to make sure that you get your play time in, your self-care time in. So it's not just, nose to the grindstone until you die, right? There's also, we have to do that, because I'll just share personally, there's times, again, in the scarcity set where I'm like, okay, I have no clients, but I could go crazy. I could, start making cold calls. I could start doing all this, whatever. But I just took a break, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go for a walk in the woods. My phone started ringing, literally, right? It's just like, sometimes we need to pull away from that energy, and then it comes, right? It's like chasing butterflies. You're never going to catch the butterfly. Well, with a net you can. Well, yeah, for sure. But again, right? It's like, sometimes we just need to pull back and trust, right? So I'm just being the devil's advocate on that, and just saying that it's the both and here, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I've definitely done both. It's funny. I'm over here just like, talking about, friends and mentors and stuff that have done so well, and they just like, they're some of them are just nose to the grindstone. Like, they will not come up for air for months.
Right.
And so I've done that too. And then I've had periods of time where I've literally like taken like a whole month off and like done nothing because I was just it was just too much. And you have a really good point, because surrendering and opening up to, and see, and that's what psychocybernetics teaches. And for those who haven't heard of psychocybernetics, that's by Maxwell Maltz, published in 1960 by a plastic surgeon. Psycho meaning mind, cybernetics meaning the governing mechanism of your mind, your subconscious. And whenever we're in our analytical mind, our conscious mind, we're in high beta. And if we are frustrated and we're just wanting to push, like you're saying, like, wanting to push through. And I know sometimes you have to push through barriers, but there's other times where you gotta kind of sit and reflect, because then you're calming the conscious mind and then allowing your brain to relax. And we have an effect on our reality. We really, really do. And I've actually had the most effect when I meditate the most and my mind is calm, and like you were saying, like how that comes to you. And so, is that how you're able to stay in alignment? Because I've noticed that with you, that you're, anytime I talk to you, and I know this happens with people with personal development, it's like this constant growth process of expanding, getting to the next level of self, of life and stuff. And how is that for you? Like, what keeps you in alignment to where you have that flow where, people will just call you or things just unfold the way they're supposed to?
People may, I'll just say it, I won't qualify it. It's trusting in divinity. That's the most succinct way that I can say it.
Wow. So simple, but true.
And I'll say this. My guide I was in meditation, they said to me the other day, so in one of my recent healings, I was given the query that every day in meditation, ask in my meditation, what can I do to surrender today? Right? What can I do to surrender today? Right now, in this moment, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but in this moment right now, right? What can I do to surrender right now? And in that, I
think I lost some of your audio. Can't hear you as well.
Oh, hang on a second, sorry. There we go. Technical difficulties. We're good now?
No, I can't hear you as well. Like your microphone went softer for some reason.
All right, can you hear me better now?
There we go. Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I think I did. I got it even better now. Can you hear
Okay,
me better
cool.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can edit that out if we want. And basically, I'm in my car and the battery. I was just trying to charge the phone so it doesn't die on me.
Oh yeah, of course.
Anyway, so it was this. I was in meditation, and all of a sudden, I just sort of was present to them, sort of laughing over my shoulder. And I said, "Okay," and they go, "You think you created everything that you have? You think that you brought it all into manifestation through whatever actions. I'll let you stop and think about that for a minute." And I was just like, shit. Because what I know, if I go back through the annals of my life, the major things that happened in my life, the major influential, transitional things that helped me get to the next level were not in my control.
Right.
They weren't in my control. No amount of kicking, screaming, yelling, making phone calls, emails, interviews, meditating, praying, manifest, nothing, right? Brought it, yeah, I mean, sure, law of attraction and whatever. Regardless, have your intention, have your desires, put that out there, but just surrender on how it comes to pass. And trust. For me, again, another time I was walking down the streets worrying about whatever I was worrying about. And the message came to me, have I ever gone without food, shelter, clothing, friendship, affection, the essentials? No, no, absolutely not. I've always been taken care of. I've always been supported. And so for me, on sort of a base level, that is something that I was kind of have operating in the back of my mind. And so it's not the answer I think most people want, but for me, I mean, Daniel, I have so many stories of how the right thing showed up at the right time to support me in what I was needing in that moment. And it didn't come from me doing this, right? It came from me just, you know, being in the flow and having the butterfly land on my shoulder in the most absurd way. And it's not to say that, yes, the hard work, the doing the do's, everything is important in that, yes. And, right, trust, let go, surrender, and know that what is meant to come in will come in, right? And I'll say this is, and I've been challenged on this, but this was a direct sort of channeling for me about a year and a half or 2 years ago, is who are we as mere mortals to try to direct the play that we are in? Stuff happens. We can respond to the stimulus that's happening in the world, and we can have our input in that. But by and large, the main things that are happening outside of our own control, right? So, and I'm not saying this from a defeatist standpoint. I'm saying this from an abundant standpoint of everything. And this is another channel. When will you see that everything around you is a sign of abundance from God? Everything. Our vision, our breath, our bodies, the cars we drive, the phones we talk through, the trees in the street, the birds in the sky, the sun in the sky, everything, the houses, the coffee in our cup in the morning, everything. And if you can flip your mindset to see everything as abundance, you're just going to keep attracting it. And I've definitely been in that place when when you're using only, I only have, right? I mean,
Right.
I only have $1 in the bank. I only have $1,000 in the bank. I only have $10,000 in the bank. I only have $1 million in the bank, is all lack mentality, because you're only saying I only have. Right. So, hey, I got $1. Hell yeah, man. I'm able to get like a donut, if that, or something, right? I can get something with that. And if you sort of keep that sort of mentality, you're going to attract it, you know, and that's law of attraction. And that's sort of what I'm with is, Yeah, and that's not to say that that I don't have my depressive states where I'm just like, oh my God, the world's against me, I'm never gonna make it, blah 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 blah. Right? I've been the bottom of the barrel so many times.
Right.
And what I know is what gets me out of that is just that surrendering and trusting. Right? Surrender and trust. And like you said, yeah, it's not. It's like two things. It's not that I don't trust, and also kind of quoting Don Miguel Ruiz, and if it was one of his books, I don't know if it was the Four Agreements or the book about relationships he has, but he talked about just innate energy, right? Let's say we've all been there. We've just been dumped, and now we're at home and we haven't showered in a week, and our place is a mess, and we're just depressed as hell. What's next? And all of a sudden, she calls, "Hey, I changed my mind. You still want to hang out? I'll be there in an hour." I guarantee you, you're going to find a whole bunch of energy to clean up yourself, clean up all those empty pizza boxes, straighten your shit out real fast, because when she shows up, you want to be on game. And that's energy that showed up that wasn't there before, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah. The energy was always there. Yeah.
Always there. And
Yeah.
so I love that story. It just cracks me up. And on the flip side, one of my new favorite quotes that I heard recently was a Mike Tyson quote.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched.
Yeah, because
Right?
in today's
Right. Right. We got a plan until the first problem happens, and then it's the oh shit moment, right? So how do we survive that? Right? It's kind of like what I'm saying is live wildly, live dangerously, take chances, take risks, because through that you're going to learn, like the surfing analogy earlier, you're going to eventually learn how to navigate those. And knowing, like Will Smith says, failures are good. It's good to have failures. It's because you
right.
can only learn through failures. Like, who learned to walk and perfectly the first time they got up and walked? No one, right? But you have that perseverance to keep
Right.
going. And it's the same thing with employment. It's the same thing with life. Like, failure is going to happen. It's how you respond to that and keep going with it, and not let it kill you or bring you down, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, my mentor actually we talked about that the other day, because he's building a company in addition to what he's doing right now with his advertising agency. And he was telling me that he's like, yeah, we're gonna fail, and yeah, we've had to change course and do a bunch of different things. He says, but failure is a necessary part of the process. You're going to keep on failing, and you learn. And so that's when you learn. It's like, okay, well, that didn't work. It's like, all right, we're just going to keep on going, and so I take that too. It's like, even like I've launched campaigns and then they didn't go as well, but see, what you do is you get the data, and then you make a decision based on the data, and then you move forward. You don't just quit. And so yeah, now it's like my mentality as far as like failure or obstacles is different. Instead of it, like I just launched a campaign for my for one of my nonprofits, and we weren't getting the results that I was looking for, right? And so my team, got back with me, and they're like, yeah, well, something's going on with it. We're not getting the impressions that we need or whatever. And I think my past self would have been frustrated, like, oh, something's wrong with my team, or like something's wrong with me, or like, what did I do? But it was really, I was honestly surprised that I didn't have emotions uh, really at all. It was almost like, okay, well, let's figure it out, right? And so then when I went in there, it was actually a simple fix. There was other campaigns in the background that were enabled, which was blocking this one from going. And then, you know, disabled those, and then it was live. Easy fix, and then it started working. And so I think if I would have been frustrated, I'm not sure if I would have had the clarity to dig into and figure it out. Because I mean, I've had that before where it's like, really frustrated or angry or whatever, that's not a good state of mind to cultivate something and to problem solve. And so yeah, I really like what you said about that. In fact, everything you said has been really, really great. So
Well, let me
appreciate
just say
it,
one
man.
more thing, and by the way, I'm going to plug you.
No,
I see your board
you're
says
good,
success
bro. Just
mindset.
keep talking.
Success mindset, real impact, real change on the board behind you, right?
Yes.
So a year or so ago, I had a hypnotherapy session that was working around these ideas that sort of came up. And long story short is the takeaway through many different scenes that I was sort of shown was the biggest one. I'll say this is a farmer can sow a field and it can fail. Okay. But that does not change the reputation, the integrity of who that farmer is. His crop failed. Okay, that sucks. How can we move forward with this? But that doesn't make him a failure, right? It failed. He and his crops are two separate things. So likewise with me, I've lost track now of how many times I've offered a workshop and no one showed up to it. Okay. At first that still bothered me, and it still bothers me a little bit, but that doesn't stop me from going out and teaching workshops. I still put them out there. Sometimes only 2 people show up, sometimes 20 people show up. Fantastic. That doesn't make me a bad practitioner, teach, coach, anything. It's just who I am. There's so many variables that are in there, right? Wrong timing, wrong subject, wrong venue. I mean, whatever. There's so many variables in that. So failures happen, like you said. I love what you said. Take the data and keep going with it, and sort of have that success mindset that you're going to make a change and an impact, right? Okay, this didn't work out, and I'll share this, and this is a great version of it too. So I'm currently living in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and years ago I was teaching. I had a course, a 5 or 6 part course called Movement, Mindfulness, and Meditations, where I teach people all of those things in sort of a package deal with each class over the 6 weeks. Well, when that series ended, I asked the person if we can just rerun the course. And she goes, actually, Brian, no, because we have someone that's already doing a meditation-based program, and it's just there's no room for that in our curriculum right now. Right. And I took it hard. I'm like, shit. So I, sat for the hour, whatever, and mourned and licked my wounds, and I'm not good enough and all this jazz. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. That was the universe checking me, because I was trying to recycle old material and I wasn't trying to come up with new material. And it was its way of being like, hey, you got this. So all of a sudden I came out of that funk, in the course of a few hours, drafted up a whole new workshop series, 5 or 6 again, with ideas that I've had that I didn't really teach, but just sort of got the framework enough to get the proposal out. Email out the proposal. An hour later, she says, this is fantastic. When do you want to start it?
Wow. Wow.
Right? And so that's what I'm saying is sometimes hearing no from the universe isn't like a shutdown. It's saying not that, something else, right? Water doesn't stop moving. If water hits an obstacle, it keeps moving, trying to find what's the next way around it.
Right.
So if you're getting a no in anything, relationships, career, personal life, spiritual life, anything, no is just a not this. It's a not now, or it's a not this. Mm-hmm. So find your way around it and find out what is opening, what channels are opening. And if you're so fixated on that one channel, you're not going to succeed. But it's like, okay, what else is opening up? What other ideas are there in meditation, in contemplation? Or sometimes it just presents itself. Like for me, I think I've lost track of how many times people would just show up and say, hey, out of the blue, I need to work with you. So-and-so said, I need to work with you, whatever. Or meeting people at events. It's about being open. Literally a few months ago, I was at an event helping a buddy do a music gig. Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. We still there? You got me?
Yeah.
Doing a music gig. And out of the blue, I ended up meeting this woman who owns a healing arts center, and she's like, I want you to teach your men's workshops there. I want you to teach these classes, and I want you to come be a part of the center and offer you body work. I wasn't looking for this. I was just helping my buddy out with a gig. I wasn't promoting myself. I wasn't anything. I was looking for this in my world. I was looking for something to do this, but she just showed up. And she saw I was wearing a shirt that says heal men, heal the planet. And she's like, what's this about? And I told her, she's like, I want you on my team. Right? So I'm like, that's what I'm saying is like, put your intentions out there and be open to when these little nudges come. What's funny was, she says, I want your number. I want to connect with you. I'm like, yeah, no, whatever. And she's like, no, seriously. She kept tailing me all night. She's like, no, seriously, I want to connect with you. Let's like, give me your number. So I'm like, okay. So for me, you know, there's this saying I've heard is you can't mess your life up. If something is meant to happen, it's going to happen in one way, shape, or form.
Right.
So stop being attached to that. Stop being attached to the, how is it going to look? How is it supposed to look? And just trust, right? Do your meditation, doing your intention, do the hard work. And, you know, as Jim Carrey says, you know, ask the universe what you want, but don't be attached on how it comes to pass. Right.
Letting go. And releasing is a muscle. Like I've had to, it's gotten better about like, okay, I'm just going to release it. But it is almost a practice to, when you get in those situations, to be conscious. Oh, okay, I need to let go of this. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel great. You know, it's yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. Yeah. So, yeah, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's wow, it's been exactly an hour, so I guess that's the time. So what would you like to leave people with today?
One thing I often remind people of is you got this. Like, you know, you got this, and I believe in you. You are stronger than you think, and you're more powerful than you believe. So trust in that you are on the path that you need to be on, and trust that you're having the experiences that you need to have. It may not always make sense in this moment, and in time it will. So trust whatever's happening, whatever successes or failures are happening right now, there's a bigger picture for that. And there's a reason that's happening, right? So whatever you're in, be fully in it, especially now with a lot of people struggling. It's surrender to the grief, surrender to the loss, surrender to the pain. And by surrendering, you're not succumbing to it and letting it control you. Last Alan Watts quote is basically, you know, jump into the whirlpool and let it jettison you out, right? Because if you try to struggle yourself out of a whirlpool, it's going to drown you.
Right.
So in that, if you see yourself in something that you understand, just surrender, let it go through, let it pass. As that lovely saying, this too shall pass. Whatever it is, right? So just trust. Trust and trust. Just trust.
Man.
And know that it's all happening the way it needs to happen.
Well said. Yeah. Well said. So where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Facebook, I am on Illuminate 333. So Illuminate, ILLUMINATE 3. Instagram, it's illuminate.ing.
Okay. I'll leave those. I'll leave your links on.
Yeah, and exactly, that'd be a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, so if people want to access his content, yeah, I'll leave all the links below, so that way you can get to his website, Instagram, and Facebook group.
Beautiful. And my website is just my name, brianmtruskowski.com. And like you said, you'll have the links in the below. Don't worry on how to spell the long Polish name. You'll figure it out.
Awesome. Well, it really a pleasure having you on here. Lots of words of wisdom. That's why I wanted to bring you on. You know, I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much, man. Really,
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate
And
it.
I'll end it with this too, Daniel, is that, I may be physically located in Michigan currently, but, I work with people all over the world, right? Through Zoom, through conversations like this.
Right.
I love, getting my spread out there. So if any of this resonated with you, please connect with me. And I'd love to have a conversation and work with you.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I would encourage people to do that, honestly. All right. Well,
Thank you
you
so
take
much, man. It's been a
care.
pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely been a pleasure.